Part 31 If Oak Trees Could Talk. Hello again, dear friends. Welcome back to my video blogs of If Oak Trees Could Talk. I'm so glad that you chose to join me again today. I hope that you're having a wonderful week. Can you believe that we are already in the middle of February? When I began doing the video blogs of my romance suspense novel, If Oak Trees Could Talk, last summer, I really had no idea how long they would take or how many. So I'm so grateful that many of you have hung in here with me to read or tune in each week. This week we finish up Chapter 15, The Cruise. Chapter 15, The Cruise. Henry looked carefully before backing up. He looked both ways and then pulled out. But just as he did, he could see Sheriff coming right behind him. "Get down, loves, get down," Henry shouted. Helen and Amelia obeyed, but weren't for sure why. They could only assume that Henry saw Eugene, which he did. When Henry passed the sheriff, he looked down a little as to not look him straight into the eye and threw up one finger from the steering wheel as to speak when passing. This was the right thing to do because, again, this was the South. Everyone speaks whether they know you or not. So Henry actually did this to keep the sheriff from becoming suspicious. It had been a long while since Henry had even seen Eugene, so they hoped that Sheriff Eugene wouldn't recognize him. As far as Henry was concerned, he had no clue as to who Eugene was either. He only knew he was the sheriff because he had seen Eugene's sheriff's car. He kept driving and tried not to cause suspicion, but all of a sudden in his rear view mirror he could see the sheriff do a U-turn in the middle of Harper Street. This could only mean one thing, and even Henry knew what it meant. They were recognized. The sheriff knew who they were, or at least who Henry was. Henry had a decision to make, either to stop or to drive faster. "Hold on, loves, we've been made," Henry shouted. "What do you mean, Daddy? What in the world are you doing? You have to stop. You can't outrun a sheriff. We are in enough trouble the way it is. Pull over, Daddy, and stop the car," Amelia shouted as if her dad couldn't hear her yelling at him. "Calm down, dear Amelia. He's not deaf. He just does not remember every event in his life yet," Helen said rather calmly, considering that she was in the front seat with a man who may or may not even know where he's going. "Okay, this has gotten crazy. Daddy, you have to pull over somewhere. Let me take over the driving. I'm the one who promised I would get you both back this morning. I should have insisted that I drive to begin with," Amelia demanded as she could feel herself panic. When she glanced back, she saw the Sheriff Eugene was still quite a distance behind them, but still he was back there. By this time the sheriff's lights and sirens were flashing and blaring so that every citizen of Mason Creek would know that there was a sheriff in hot pursuit of criminals. Rarely did an occurrence like this one escape the attention of Mason Creek's residents, for there was very little that happened in this lazy southern town. "Amelia, sweetie, just stay calm. I know exactly where I am and where I'm going. Let him follow me. I bet it will be the first police escort ever to Glenview's residential home for the elderly," Henry said as both he and Helen chuckled. "Are you telling me that you both find this to be humorous?" Amelia asked as she realized that this scenario could only end badly. "We've got to pull over and let the sheriff know that we are on our way back to Glenview. He needs to know that we are not trying to escape again, Daddy." Amelia spoke sternly. However, it was to no avail. She watched her daddy wink, and then he smiled at her mama with all that too familiar impish grin that Amelia had seen thousands of times. Henry cranked up the radio that was playing some country song by George Jones and patted the dashboard of his car. "Oh, baby, don't fail me now," he shouted, when all of a sudden he pushed the gas pedal as far down as he could and peeled down the street, burning his tires. The smell of rubber burning filled the car. A huge cloud of smoke blew behind him. It wasn't long until Amelia could hear the sound of a siren getting closer. Henry drove like he had done this many times. He squealed tires as he made a sharp turn into a side street that led down past the First Baptist Church of Mason Creek. He darted into another side street that led down the street that Glenview was on. As he sped down this street to where Glenview's residential home for the elderly was, Henry whipped the car into the parking lot, which was practically empty. He proceeded to squeal tires and wheel his car around in circles until the image of several figure eights had been burned into the parking lot's pavement. After making such an entrance, Henry suddenly whipped his car into a parking space. He put the car in park while quickly handing Amelia the keys. "And that, my dears, is how it's done," Henry boasted. Amelia was in total disbelief at what had just happened. She was speechless and as pale as a sheet. Her daddy got out of the car and went around the side of the car to open the door for her mother. He acted the perfect gentleman as he helped Helen out of the car. He pushed a lever to the back seat so that Amelia could peel herself out of the car as well. Just as they were all out of the car, they heard more tires squealing as a car barreled into the parking lot where they all stood. Sheriff Eugene's sirens rang out and lights flashed while he practically fell out of his police car and raced toward them. "Miss Amelia, what in the world do you think that you are doing? Do you know that you could have gotten someone killed driving like that?" "Oh, excuse my manners. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Tyler," Eugene shouted as he took his sheriff's hat off to be polite. He was shouting quite loudly because his siren was still blaring. In the South, it is an understood rule that you are to always respect your elders. He then ran back to his car to turn the siren lights off. Amelia listened as the sheriff was scolding her, but then suddenly she looked at her watch. It was exactly 12 noon. She answered him without letting on that it was her daddy instead of she that was doing the driving. "Well, Eugene, I promised I would get my parents back to Glenview this morning. It is just now noon, so I kept my promise. We've been here about 5 minutes or so, wouldn't you say, Mama?" Amelia asked, with Henry's same wink and smile. "Now, Miss Amelia, when I was behind you with my lights and my siren going, you should have pulled over. You can't just go speeding in and out of these side streets like you have just done," Eugene stated. "Excuse me for interrupting you, Eugene. I know that you're trying to do your job, but I wanted to ask about your folks before we go back inside." "How are Ed and Imogene doing?" Helen asked. "It has been entirely too long since we've seen them. The next time we spend time at home, we really should have them over for some of Henry's famous barbecue," Helen continued. Thank you, Mrs. Tyler. My parents are doing fine. They would truly enjoy Mr. Tyler's delicious barbecue. It is surely famous around these parts, ma'am," Eugene replied. He was holding the sheriff's hat in his hands as he showed respect to Mr. Tyler. "Well, no sense prolonging our return. Thank you, young man, for escorting us to Glenview. We really appreciate it, Sheriff," Henry said as he grabbed Eugene's hand and shook it. Eugene didn't know what to do as the Tylers and Amelia left him standing in Glenview's parking lot holding the sheriff's hat. "Dang, I am sure going to hear about this when I get to the sheriff's office," Eugene said as he could see Mr. Hodges watching the shenanigans from his office window. Thank you once again for tuning in or reading along with me. It is my hope that you have been enjoying my romance suspense novel, If Oak Trees Could Talk, for it has been my pleasure to share it with you. As always, I would love to hear from you. I want to thank all of you that have begun following my WordPress blogs. Please continue to tune in as we are moving right along through the book. If you are interested in obtaining your own copy of Oak Trees Could Talk or any of my other books, please visit my Amazon author page. Also, if you are new to my video blogs and would like to catch up on the story from the beginning, please check out the archives in this blog or simply subscribe to my YouTube videos as they are numbered and in order. I am also a weekly contributor to the Lakeview Times. All of my videos are published each week at www.lakeviewtimes.com.